Hey everybody, it's Lo and welcome back to my channel, Lo Without Limits. Today I'm going to show you how to make kale chips in 2 different flavors. So if you want to see that, then just keep watching. Kale is a nutritionally dense food that is just so good for you. So of course, if you want a snack that's good for you, kale chips are the perfect answer. And you can get them at the store for a variety of prices, but they're usually a bit more expensive for what you would expect kale chips to be. So this is a way that you can make them at home and save money and make them your own flavor. So I'm going to show you a super cheesy flavor, and then I'm going to try kind of like a barbecue smoky flavor. So I'm gonna try 2 of those, and I just have 1 bunch of kale. Of course, you can do non-conventional kale if that is what's in your budget, but I decided to splurge a little bit, so I went the organic kale route. So the first thing that you want to do, especially if you buy organic, because they usually end up with a few more little friends along for the ride, or if you buy conventional because you want to make sure that there's none of anything that they sprayed or anything all over the kale, you want to make sure they're super clean. So the very first thing you want to do is just give your kale a nice good rinse down. So I rinsed it down just along the stem, on the front and the back, just to make sure that nothing was really stuck to the stem, because that's usually where dirt or little bugs will try to hide. And then just letting them soak in the water. So I fill up my sink just enough to kind of let the kale soak in there. Give it a little bit of salt in the water just to really kill anything that may be on the kale. So once it's soaked, then you can dry it. So you can either just dry it with a towel and make sure your kale is nice and dry that way, or I have this little dryer like salad spinner thing. So I've kind of patted them dry with a towel, and now I'm just going to break them into the pieces that I'm going to put in the oven, and I'm going to just spin it to make sure all the extra moisture is out of there. And you want to make sure that all the pieces that you're cutting are about the same size. The kale just divided up into 2 bunches, since I'm going to do 2 different flavors, and I'm also going to preheat my oven to 300 degrees. So for this you want it very low because the kale is quite fragile. Now to coat the kale in the different flavors, I'm going to make those into a cream in my NutriBullet. You can also use your food processor if you want to. I have one, I just don't feel like getting it out and down for such a small amount. So I'm just going to use my NutriBullet and mix up everything in there to make a nice cream. That way it has more flavor to it. Otherwise you can just do olive oil, spray some olive oil on there with some salt and pepper. But if you want more flavor, then this will really let it stick. So in this bowl I've had some cashews just soaking, about half a cup of cashews. So I'm going to use half of that for each sauce, so 1/4 cup total. About a 1/4 cup of these soaked cashews for this first one, maybe a little bit more. To give it a cheesy flavor, I'm just gonna do some hefty scoopfuls of nutritional yeast. It's super high in B vitamins, it gives everything a nice cheesy flavor, all without the dairy. So that also makes this vegan. Also gonna give it a pinch of salt, as well as a little bit of garlic powder and a little bit of onion. And a pinch of some apple cider vinegar. Now in my NutriBullet, I'm just going to blend these things up. Do a smidge of water just so it's extra creamy. Just maybe some of my cashew water. Alrighty, and now here it is. Kind of creamy, and I'm going to just put that all over my kale and then lay it on a baking sheet. So I'm just going to scoop out some of this. The oven is ready. And with that, just kind of massage it in. And you want to make sure that the kale is evenly coated, but also not too coated or else it won't dry out. So how this kale looks, how it's pretty lightly coated and it all has a little bit of like that stuff on it, and you can just feel that. That's when you know it's pretty good and ready to go onto the baking sheet. And with this, you want to make sure that all the pieces again are about the same size. That way they all cook the same. You also want to make sure that they all have space. Again, you want to make sure like this is too coated. You just want to take some of that off. And now that they are all flat on the baking sheets, I'm going to stick them in the oven. Again, my oven is at 300 degrees, and this is where it gets tricky. Right now my kale pieces are a bit on the larger side, so they might take a bit longer, but I'm gonna put about 20 minutes on the clock, but check it at 10 minutes and at 15 minutes. At 15 minutes, if they're looking good, I might just kind of shuffle them up a bit on the baking sheet, take out any that are looking like they're about to get too burnt, and then take those out and then just leave it in there for another 3 to 5 minutes. So with this, depending on the kale that you have and the amount of sauce that you put on it, it's really just kind of depends. So I'm gonna put 20 minutes on the timer, but just keep checking on it. Okay, with that first batch, it's been about 10 minutes, so I'm just going to check them really quickly. They're still a bit soft. I also could have ground up those cashews a bit more, but still a bit soft. In 5 minutes, I'm just going to move them around a bit and then see how much longer I want to go from there. In the meantime, now that the first ones, the cheesy ones, are about halfway done, I'm going to get started on the second ones, and these ones I'm going to have like a sweet barbecue-y taste almost, so that will be super good. This recipe and kind of like tweak as I go. It's never really the same all the time, so but I'll just show you what I do and then you can tweak it to how you like from there. Maybe once again with the cashews to make them nice and creamy. I just realized that I did not hit record as I was finishing explaining what I put in here. So I have the 1/4 cup of cashews. I also did a pinch of salt, some onion and garlic powder, a lot of paprika because that'll give it that like warm barbecue-y taste, as well as some Dijon mustard. Some apple cider vinegar is in there, and some maple syrup. So I have all those things in here. I may need to add water once again just to make the cashews grind up, but I'm just gonna blend it for now. Give it a little taste test. Oh no, oh no. That's so good. I may have splashed a bit too much of the apple cider vinegar in there. So I think, but the heat is good, so I definitely don't want to add any more paprika. I think I'm just gonna add a bit more maple syrup to it. Maybe a smidge of garlic too. So this seems like it will be good just for now. I'm just gonna let it sit here because it's been another 5 minutes, so I'm going to check on the kale chips once again. And any that look like they're getting a little toasty already, I'm just gonna put off to the side. I wish I had a bowl over here. Honestly, this whole tray looks done. This whole tray is done. This tray needs a few more minutes. I'm just gonna turn it, that way they all get cooked well. And now I'm going to try one. It's so cheesy and so good. And now while the other ones are in there for just a few more minutes, I'm going to put the barbecue-y sauce all over the other half of the kale. Right, and now I'm I'm going to take the other ones out, see how they're looking. This one, maybe they could use one more minute. I think that was only 2 that I had them in there for. Yeah, I'll give them another minute and a half. And while I do that, I can actually just start putting some of the other kale chips on the sheet. They're all looking pretty good now. There's some that are a bit softer, like this one and this one, but that's just because they had a bit too much stuff on them. But other than that, they're good to go. So now that this one's all done, I'm just gonna put the rest of the kale on there. Now I'm going to pop these ones into the oven. And I'm going to put another 20 minutes on the timer, but again, check at 10 and 15 minutes. And in the meantime, you can just use this to clean up your mess or even make a third batch of kale chips if you wanted to. It's been 10 minutes for that second batch, so I'm just going to look at them and then put them in for another 5 minutes and then look at them then. So it's the 10-minute check. Hot, it's always so hot in my face. I don't know why I'm like shocked by it each time. Those are doing well. And I will look again in 5 minutes and then either rotate or take some of them out if they're already getting a little too toasty. And now it's been another 5 minutes. I'm just going to check on them once again. And with this, I'm just going to pick out any that already are pretty toasty, like that one. I'm just going to give these about 2.5 more minutes in the oven. Give it a taste test, the barbecue. It's so good. Honestly, usually I just do the cheese ones with the nutritional yeast, get those extra B vitamins. I always forget how good the barbecue is because just the different mix of the flavors, like the paprika gives you that nice like smoky taste in the back, but the maple syrup is so sweet. And it still has the tang from the apple cider vinegar. It's honestly so good. It's a really tough call. Even just like when I would eat potato chips, like I'm always like, oh, I love sweet and salt and vinegar or sour cream and onion or barbecue. Like I don't ever love them all on the same day, but I definitely like kind of go back and forth on them. So right now I'm loving those barbecue ones. And usually, just another quick tip before I take those out in a few minutes, usually I just make a small batch of kale chips, which is why I'll usually just use 1 sheet and didn't realize that I was gonna need to do 2 sheets 2 times. Because I don't ever do a full head of kale. I usually get kale, put it in salads, use it for other things, put it in milkshakes, not milkshakes, smoothies. And when it's starting to go bad or starting to get a little bit limp, or I just bought a new head of kale, so like these 3 random pieces I don't really like want anymore, and I can just go onto the new kale, that's when I usually just make a quick batch of some cheesy kale chips. But now I know, and if you're gonna go with the full head of kale, lots of baking sheets, 2 rounds for each one. It's a lot of kale, but they end up so small, like they shrink down to nothing. It's been a couple minutes and they are finally all done. Oh, look at those, so crispy. And here they are, my 2 final kale chips. Some nacho cheese and some sweet barbecue. Both of them so good. And these 2 bowls were from 1 head of kale. Well, there you have it. That is how you can make kale chips with 2 different flavors, the nacho cheese and the sweet barbecue. Of course, there are so many other different flavors out there. I'm sure if you Google kale chips, or even if you look on the back of a bag of kale chips at the store and just kind of get recipe inspiration. But these are the 2 that are my go-to. They're so simple, so easy, and you don't need a ton of crazy ingredients. It's a lot of stuff that you probably already have in your pantry, and they're just really delicious and they're a nice, easy snack. And if you don't finish them all right away, because this is a whole head of kale now, you can store them on your counter in something like this mason jar. I'll have some of these linked down below. It's nice and airtight, and you can just leave it on your counter for up to a week. But let's be honest, you'll not last a week. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment down below how you like to make your kale chips, other snacks that you like, and what you want to see more of on my channel. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe. I upload a new video every Wednesday. So until the next one, thanks for watching.